The restaurant was quiet for a Friday afternoon, soft piano music, polished marble floors, and a view of the city skyline that only billionaires could afford to enjoy daily. Emma adjusted her maroon apron, took a deep breath, and approached table 12. Seated there was one of the most powerful men in the country, Richard Hale, a billionaire tech investor known for his sharp tongue and zero tolerance for mistakes. Beside him sat his 12-year-old son, Leo, staring blankly at his untouched plate of pasta. Emma smiled politely. "Is everything okay, sir?" Richard barely looked up from his phone. "Food's fine. My son just isn't hungry." But Emma noticed something strange. Leo's lips were pale. His hand trembled slightly as he tried to lift his fork. There was a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead, despite the cool air conditioning. Emma had seen this before. Not in medical school, she never went. But in her childhood. Her younger brother had shown the same signs the day his blood sugar crashed. Emma hesitated. "Sir, may I ask, has your son eaten today?" Richard sighed, annoyed. He was discharged from the hospital this morning. Best doctors in the city ran tests. He's perfectly fine. Leo suddenly winced, clutching his stomach. Emma's heart skipped. "I'm sorry," she said softly but firmly, "but he doesn't look fine." Richard's eyes snapped up. "Are you questioning the doctors?" Emma swallowed her fear. Losing this job would ruin her. But losing a child. "Please," she said, voice trembling. "May I bring him some juice?" "Just in case." Richard was about to refuse when Leo whispered, barely audible, "Dad, I feel dizzy." That was enough. "Fine," Richard snapped. "But make it quick." Emma ran. She poured orange juice, grabbed sugar packets, and rushed back. Leo's hands were shaking badly now. "Drink," she urged gently. Leo took a sip and then another. Seconds passed. Then Leo's eyes rolled back. He collapsed. Chaos erupted. Richard stood up, shouting for help. Staff called emergency services. Emma dropped to her knees beside Leo, her hands steady despite her racing heart. "Hypoglycemia," she said loudly. "His blood sugar is dangerously low." Richard stared at her. "How do you know that?" "My brother almost died from it," she replied, tearing open sugar packets and rubbing them on Leo's gums, something she remembered doing years ago under a doctor's guidance. Minutes felt like hours. Sirens wailed outside. By the time paramedics arrived, Leo was breathing steadily again. One paramedic checked his vitals and looked at Emma in disbelief. "Who did this?" "She did," Richard said quietly, pointing. At the hospital, doctors confirmed it, a rare reaction to medication, something the earlier tests had failed to detect. If Leo hadn't received sugar when he did, he could have suffered brain damage, or worse. That night, Richard Hale sat alone in the waiting room, staring at his shaking hands. A billionaire who could buy anything. Except the minutes he almost lost with his son. When Emma came to return his wallet, he dropped it in the chaos. Richard stood up. "You saved my son's life," he said, voice cracking. "I treated you like you were invisible." Emma looked down. "I just did what anyone should." "No," Richard said firmly. "Most people don't look. You did." Weeks later, Emma was called into the restaurant manager's office, expecting trouble. Instead, Richard Hale was waiting. He stood up, extended his hand, and said words Emma would never forget. "I want you to run the health safety program for all my restaurants nationwide. Full salary. Full benefits. Medical training included." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Why me?" she whispered. Richard smiled. Because kindness noticed what money and degrees missed. And somewhere in a hospital room overlooking the city, a boy named Leo was alive because a waitress cared enough to speak up.